The front door of my own boutique was bolted shut when I arrived on Monday morning. New locks. New alarm code. New name on the lease. I pressed my face against the glass and saw her, my stepmother. Victoria, standing behind MY counter, wearing MY prototype dress, laughing into MY phone with MY investors. She looked up, saw me through the window, smiled, and mouthed 2 words. Go home. If you've ever had someone steal what you built with your bare hands, drop your story in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from tonight. I read every single one. Stay with me, because what I did next made her regret ever learning my name. My name is Naomi Ellis. I'm 27 years old, and I run, or I used to run, a luxury fashion label called Narrow out of a converted firehouse in Brooklyn. Hand-draped gowns. Architectural silhouettes. Fabrics I sourced myself from mills in Como and Kyoto. Every stitch told a story, every collection was a piece of my soul cut into silk and bone. To the rest of the world, Narrow was the next great American fashion house. To my stepmother, Victoria Ashford Ellis, it was just another asset to absorb. She married my father, Richard Ellis, when I was 14. He was a real estate titan who owned half the commercial waterfront in Lower Manhattan. She was a former model turned brand consultant who smelled old money the way sharks smell blood. Within 3 years, she had her name on every account, every deed, every trust document my father ever signed. When my father died of a stroke 2 years ago, she didn't just inherit his empire. She inherited me. Or at least she thought she did. The summer before he died, he sat front row at my first runway show in a Bushwick warehouse. 36 seats. 14 looks. 0 press. He clapped so hard his palms turned red and said 5 words I tattooed on my ribs the following week. You were born for this. That was the last fashion show he ever attended. Victoria moved fast after the funeral. Restructured the trust. Dissolved 2 foundations. Consolidated everything under a new holding company called Ashford Legacy Group. My inheritance was reclassified as a conditional disbursement, tied to performance reviews conducted by Victoria herself. She became judge, jury, and banker of my entire future. But I had Narrow. My label. My hands. My name on the door. The firehouse studio sat on a cobblestone block in Red Hook. 3 stories of exposed brick, steel beams, and north-facing windows that poured white light across my cutting tables. Ground floor was the atelier, 8 sewing stations, 2 industrial steamers, a pattern wall covered in muslin toiles pinned like butterfly wings. Second floor held my office and a fitting room lined in blush velvet where clients cried seeing themselves in my gowns. Third floor was mine, a small apartment with a fire escape overlooking the harbor. I could see the Statue of Liberty on clear mornings. She always looked like she was walking toward me. The lease was in my name. The business license was in my name. The trademark was in my name. Everything I built from nothing belonged to me alone. Or so I thought. It started small. Victoria calling weekly then daily. Always with suggestions. Darling, have you considered a diffusion line? Your price points alienate the mainstream. I ignored her. Then she started showing up unannounced. Always in head-to-toe Chanel. Always with someone new, a brand strategist, a licensing attorney, a consultant who talked about scalability like religion. I told her no every single time. Each refusal made her smile tighter, her heels louder on the concrete floor. Then one midnight in late September, I was hand-beating a bodice, 3,000 Japanese glass seed beads in midnight blue, when my phone buzzed. An email from my landlord. Not to me, forwarded by accident. The sender was a paralegal at Ashford Legacy Group. Subject line. Transfer of commercial lease, 47 Van Brunt Street, Brooklyn. My hands went still. Beads scattered across the table like tiny blue planets falling out of orbit. Victoria's company had been negotiating to purchase my entire building at 40% above market. The deal included one clause that stopped my breathing. All existing tenant agreements shall be reclassified under Ashford Legacy Group management. She wasn't just buying the building. She was buying my cage. That same night I discovered worse. The trademark I assumed was untouchable had a gap. My registration covered clothing and accessories but not fragrances, home goods, or licensing. Victoria's team had already filed a competing application for Narrow Living, dated 3 weeks prior. She was building a shadow version of my brand, right under my feet. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop, created a new folder, and named it Seams. Inside, subfolders. Legal. Financial. Communications. Timeline. Evidence. And then I started building. The next morning I was sitting in the office of Marcus Chen, the sharpest intellectual property attorney in Manhattan. His firm occupied the 40th floor of a glass tower in Midtown. The receptionist offered sparkling water and crystal. I declined. I wasn't here for comfort. Marcus spread my documents across his conference table like a surgeon examining X-rays. He whistled low. She's not stupid, I'll give her that. But she's sloppy. He pointed to the Narrow Living trademark application. They filed under a shell company called Ashford Creative Holdings. But the operating agreement lists Celeste Ellis as sole creative director. Your half-sister has 0 independent design credentials. No portfolio. No prior registrations. No published work. That's grounds for a fraud on the registry challenge. I leaned forward. What else? He flipped to the lease transfer documents. Your landlord hasn't signed yet. The offer is conditional on a building inspection scheduled for next Friday. If we file a tenant's right of first refusal before that inspection, Victoria's offer dies on the table. How long do I have? 6 days. I hired him on the spot. Paid the retainer from my own studio revenue, $42,000 wired before lunch. What Victoria didn't know, what nobody in the family knew, was that Narrow had generated $1.6 million in the last fiscal year. Private commissions from collectors in Paris, Dubai, and Tokyo. A capsule collaboration with a Milan-based textile house that paid 6 figures up front. Every dollar is reinvested quietly. No flash. No announcements. No Instagram flexing. Just work. Marcus filed the right of first refusal by 3 p.m. that afternoon. The trademark opposition brief followed the next morning, 47 pages of evidence proving Narrow Living was a derivative fraud built on my original brand identity. But legal defense was only half the war. I needed offense. That evening, I called the one person who had been inside Ashford Legacy Group and walked away clean. Jerome Watts. My father's former CFO. Victoria had fired him 3 months after the funeral and replaced him with her personal accountant from Palm Beach. Jerome had kept quiet out of loyalty to my father's memory. But loyalty has limits, and Jerome had kept copies of everything. We met at a diner in Fort Greene. Red vinyl booths. Coffee so strong it could strip paint. Jerome slid a thick manila envelope across the table without a word. I opened it. Inside, 18 months of internal financial records from Ashford Legacy Group. Wire transfers to offshore accounts in the Caymans and Liechtenstein. Invoice padding on 3 Manhattan development projects totaling $14 million. A forged signature on a trust amendment that reduced my inheritance share from 33% to 0, dated 2 weeks after my father's death. She forged his signature, Jerome said quietly. I watched her do it. Used a light box and traced it from an old contract. My coffee went cold in my hands. I stared at the documents until the letters blurred. This wasn't just greed. This was erasure. She was deleting me from my own father's legacy, one document at a time. I took the envelope home and added every page to the Seams folder. By midnight the evidence binder had grown to 312 pages. The next 4 days moved like a chess game played in fast forward, Day 1, my attorney filed the trademark opposition. Victoria's lawyers responded with a cease and desist, demanding I withdraw. Marcus shredded it and sent back a counterclaim. Day 2, I contacted 3 of Nero's biggest clients privately. A tech CEO's wife in San Francisco, a film producer in London, a royal family member in Doha. Each one signed an affidavit confirming they associated Nero exclusively with my name and my designs. Not Celeste's. Not Victoria's. Mine. Day 3, Jerome introduced me to a forensic accountant named Dana Reeves, who specialized in trust fraud. She reviewed the offshore transfers in 4 hours and confirmed what I suspected. Victoria had moved $22 million out of the family trust into personal accounts using shell corporations that existed only on paper. Day 4, the building inspection was scheduled for Friday morning. At 8 a.m., my attorney hand-delivered the right of first refusal to my landlord's office. By 9:15, the landlord called Victoria's team and canceled the inspection. The building's sale was dead. Victoria called me that afternoon. Her voice was ice-wrapped in silk. Naomi, darling. I don't know what game you think you're playing. But you are out of your depth. Come to brunch on Sunday. Let's settle this like family. I let the silence stretch for 5 full seconds. Then I said one word. No. And hung up. That night, I sat alone on the fire escape. Harbor lights dancing on black water. The Statue of Liberty glowed green against the dark. I held the evidence binder in my lap. 312 pages of proof that the woman who stole my father also tried to steal my future. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because Victoria had just announced something that changed everything, a massive New Year's Eve gala at the Manhattan penthouse. Every investor, every partner, every power player in the Ashford Empire would be in one room. And I had just figured out exactly how to use that night, to end her. The invitation arrived on December 20th, heavy cream cardstock. Gold foil lettering. The Ashford Legacy Group cordially invites you to ring in the new year at the Ellis Penthouse, 432 Park Avenue. She had the nerve to use my father's name on the building and her name on the invite. Celeste texted me a photo of her dress fitting that same afternoon. A white beaded column gown that looked suspiciously like a design from my spring 2023 mood board. She captioned it, New Year New Me Dizzy. I screenshot it and added it to the Seams folder. I RSVP'd yes. The next 10 days were surgical. Marcus finalized the legal package, a 400-page federal complaint covering trademark fraud, trust manipulation, wire fraud, forgery, and offshore tax evasion. Dana Reeves prepared a forensic accounting summary so clean that the IRS could frame it on its wall. Jerome signed a sworn affidavit detailing everything he witnessed, including the forged signature on the trust amendment. I had the documents bound in black leather with gold embossing on the cover. Simple. Elegant. Lethal. 1 copy for the FBI. 1 copy for the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. 1 copy for the New York Attorney General. And 1 very special copy, for Victoria. I designed the delivery box myself. Matte black. Magnetic closure. Lined in midnight velvet. My old Nero label stitched inside the lid, the original one I'd sewn by hand 4 years ago in my first studio apartment. On top of the documents I placed a single swatch of fabric. Italian silk organza in blood red. The same fabric from the first dress I ever made for myself. The dress, my father called a masterpiece. The dress Victoria once called a costume. Underneath the swatch, a handwritten note on ivory card stock. Victoria. You married into this name. I was born with it. These are copies. The originals are already delivered. There is no deal. There is no negotiation. There is no family. Happy New Year. Naomi. Sealed with black wax. No crest. Just my thumbprint pressed into the center. December 31st, Manhattan sparkled like a broken chandelier. I spent the morning at the studio with my team, 5 seamstresses who had been with me since the beginning. We shared champagne and croissants. I gave each of them a hand-thrown ceramic ornament I'd made myself and a bonus check that made 2 of them cry. They didn't know what was coming that night. Nobody did. At 4 p.m., a bonded courier in a black suit collected the box from my studio. White gloves. No questions. Delivery scheduled for 11:45 p.m. to the penthouse lobby. Time to arrive exactly 15 minutes before midnight. I didn't go to the gala. Instead, I drove north. 3 hours through snow-dusted highways to a farmhouse in Hudson Valley that my father had bought when I was 6. The only property Victoria never knew about because it was registered under my mother's maiden name. My real mother. The one who died when I was 12. The one whose sewing machine still sat in the corner of the living room, covered in a linen cloth. I built a fire. Opened a bottle of 2006 Barolo my father had been saving. Poured 2 glasses, one for me, one for the empty chair across the table. And I waited. 11:47 p.m. My phone lit up. Marcus sent one text. Delivered. Lobby confirmed receipt. 11:52 p.m. Jerome texted. Source inside says Victoria opened it personally in the foyer. She's not moving. 11:56 p.m. Celeste called. I watched it ring out. 11:57 p.m. Victoria called. Then again. Then again. 3 calls in 90 seconds. 11:58 p.m. I answered. The sound that came through the speaker wasn't a voice. It was wreckage. Victoria was screaming so hard her words collapsed into fragments. What have you? You can't. I will destroy, your father would never. I waited until she ran out of air. Then I spoke. Calm. Clear. Final. You spent 2 years trying to erase me. You stole my name. You stole my inheritance. You forged my father's signature while his body was still warm. And you smiled at me across brunch tables while you did it. So hear me now, Victoria, because these are the last words you will ever get from me. I am not your stepdaughter. I am not your project. I am not your casualty. I am Naomi Ellis, and I just buried you in your own ambition. The FBI has the originals. Your lawyers can't help you. Your money can't save you. And your daughter's dress tonight is a stolen design, which I also documented. Enjoy the fireworks. I hung up. Powered off the phone. Dropped it in the kitchen drawer next to my mother's old recipe cards. Outside the farmhouse window, snow fell on black pines. The fire cracked. The Barolo was perfect. I raised my glass to the empty chair. Happy New Year, Dad. I wore something cute. If this story hit you in the chest, smash that like button and subscribe. Drop a fire in the comments if Naomi made the right call. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight.